Real people, real talk.
Made to help people in our community in every way. For your girl.
Gerrymandering, voter suppression, redistricting, all words that I remember from my junior high school civics class, and all words that have come to the forefront of conversations today. Hello, everyone. I'm Beverly Taylor, and this is the 411 Live, Real People, Real Talk. Some of you may be thinking, I've heard these words, and I hear them all the time, and I don't want to hear them anymore. I get this. But wait a minute, because I have someone interesting to add to this conversation, and that being Chris Walton. Chris is a Milwaukee native, and he got interested in politics at the ripe old age of 9. And he is the former chairman of the Democratic Party of Milwaukee County. Chris, welcome.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine. I'm just fine. And I can tell you're doing fine, too. You're doing fine, too. In this introduction, I'm saying that you were the youngest chairman of the Democratic Party for Milwaukee County. 29, right?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
You know, it was the vice chair of the party at the time was stepping down, and I was considering running for vice chair because the current chair I assumed he was going to run for re-election. And I had approached him about it and thought, maybe we would be able to work well together. And he said, well, if you're thinking about running for vice chair, why don't you just run for chair? And I just stopped wait, would I be qualified to do that?
Right.
Well, if you can be vice chair, the number one job of the vice chair is to be able to step in if something happens to the chair. And I was like, well, yeah, I guess that is kind of the most important job. So I'll think about it. And I went home and talked to some family. And they all was like, well, you've always wanted to be involved and do this. If this is the opportunity, take it. Go for it.
Yeah.
And I announced that I was going to run, and people were very supportive. And lo and behold, election night comes, and I won unanimously, uncontested.
That is a compliment.
Yeah.
That's validation.
It very much so.
That is good. And the fact that this didn't just happen. I mean, there's, history of you and politics and stuff. And I mentioned 9 years old, you got interested in it. So 9?
Right.
Tell me about that.
So I was third grade, Miss Seibel's class. I still
You remember the teacher's name?
We are Facebook friends now. And
wow.
And she introduced me to, pretty much my love of politics. She gave me the children's biography of JFK. And I'm reading this book and learning about President Kennedy and the Kennedys, and I think I can do this. I can do this. Why not?
Yeah.
Now, of course, I didn't realize at that point my family wasn't millionaires, so it's a little bit of a financial jump. But it just started a love of history, a love of reading, and it just kept going. And I fell in love with politics. And by the end of the book, I was like, I want to be president.
Yeah.
I can be president one day. And you would think by the end of the JFK children's biography, you wouldn't necessarily want to be president, considering how the story ends. But it's like, I could do that. I want to do that. And it just, when I was 15, I worked on my first campaign.
15. Okay.
So Matt Flynn, who ran for Congress in 2004, his campaign came and knocked on my door, and they just asked me if I wanted to volunteer.
Nice.
And, the opportunity only knocks once. So I went and volunteered with them and worked on the Kerry campaign that fall. Again, in 2006, worked on the governor's race at that point, and went off to college in Mississippi State University and worked in politics down in Mississippi and became president of the College Democrats there.
Oh, my goodness.
So they needed to import a Democrat from Mississippi. And after graduated from college, and came back and did the recall here in Wisconsin and took off with the presidential campaigns again that year. And after the Obama campaigns, I ended up moving out to Washington for the first time and worked on campaigns in Virginia and Maryland and D.C. And I even went to Colorado for a U.S. Senate race.
Oh, my.
And I went to Mississippi, worked on the state house race as a campaign manager, and I moved back to Wisconsin in 2015 and worked with the state party. And so when that was all that was over in 2016, it was like, it's exhausting. And considering how the 2016 elections went, I was like, if Donald Trump can be president, maybe I don't want to be president anymore. Maybe politics isn't exactly where I want to be, because my understanding of politics was this is supposed to be an argument of high-minded ideas and very intelligent people. And if he could be president,
That's not what you saw. Huh?
no.
Okay.
And so, I decided I was going to go try to live a normal life, and just found a regular job and just take a break for a while and step back. And then, of course,
Got pulled back in.
got pulled back in. I couldn't stay away. And I started organizing with the county party, because I'd been working with them previously when I worked with the state party, and organizing different events and campaign events for some special elections around the country. We did some phone banks in Georgia and in Oklahoma, and just trying to help out campaigns around the country. And they asked me to be the political director for the county party. And so while doing that, okay, I'm still engaged. I'm still doing stuff because I see a need here. I can't allow the stuff that President Trump at that point was doing. I can't let that just go and not do anything. And then the phone call came.
Wow. So when we talk about you being the youngest chairman of the Democratic Party for Milwaukee County, it makes it almost sound like this young blood who doesn't really have any experience, but you have a lot of experience, and more so than somebody who might have been 43 or something like that. I
earned every last one of these gray hairs.
Yeah, that's great. That is great. Okay. So, and you broke a lot of other barriers.
Correct. Correct. I was the first, the last African American man to be chair of the county party was back in, I guess, the mid 80s or so.
Okay.
And so I was the first African American man to be chair of the party in my lifetime, and the first openly gay person to ever be chair of the party here in Milwaukee.
Okay. So let's talk about some of this stuff. Let's go back to the civics class for a moment, and let's talk about redistricting. So every 10 years, the country does a census, and we're in 2000, what?
21. Yeah.
So 2020 census time. And then from that census, we do the maps. We redraw the maps as needed. We're talking about with the census, we count up all the people in the U.S. We divide everybody up somewhat equally. We want to get 435 congressional districts. And so that's the way it is. And whatever party within that state, whatever party is the majority, they kind of get their say in that redistricting.
Right.
That's where we get gerrymandering, and both parties do it. All right.
The
So-
gerrymandering goes all the way back to where they got the name from. It was Elbridge Gerry, who was the governor of Massachusetts back in like the 1790s. And he drew the lines. At that point, parties didn't really exist, but he drew the lines for his friends. So you just draw the line. This is my friend. This is his neighborhood. I'll draw this district. He's going to do what I want him to do. And you draw the lines like that. And that's where gerrymandering came from.
Yep.
And it's just progressed throughout the ages at this point.
Exactly. Okay, so now we get to 2010, and things really start to change. And I'm just looking at my notes, and I'm just looking at kind of what happened. We got that red map, this project, and it seems that this Republican guy came up and said, "You know what? We can tweak this a little bit and turn the map red nationally, but we focus on state races, the state legislatures. And after a census, we know there's going to be some redistricting and drawing lines, so we may need to make sure that there are plenty of Republicans in there so that they are at the helm of drawing the lines."
Right.
Okay. It worked.
Very well.
Yeah. And do you think Democrats knew what hit them?
I think we knew after the elections because at that point, the wave had come through and we saw what damage had been done at that point. We had in 2009, 2010, we had a Democratic governor in Wisconsin. We had a Democratic state senate and state assembly. This is right after the wave of 2008. So Wisconsin, a lot of states had full Democratic trifectas. The trifecta, I mean, governor, House, and Senate of that state. And they should have been, if they had gotten reelected in 2010, they would have been able to draw the lines as they would have saw fit.
Right.
But of course, the wave came back, and Republicans were put in place. And they took it to a whole nother level because technology at that point had progressed so far. You know, and during the 2000 census, we really had just really got the internet still. So now here we are 10 years later, and all the advances in technology and data collection, we know where people shop.
Right.
We know where you eat, who you're with, where all this kind of stuff. We can really narrow in and really create the lines that we want to create.
Yeah. So with that whole the red map strategy, you go in and you try to help all these different states. So you're looking at the map and you're saying, okay, I think we can flip Wisconsin. We can just put our support, our money, and our ads with these Republican candidates, so they'll beat the Democrat, and blah, 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 blah. And they do that all across the country, picking up different people. And they pick up a lot of state houses and senates, you know? And then it's a game changer. And we are still dealing with that.
Yeah.
Because with the Republicans over, almost half?
More than half. More than half of the state legislatures in the country.
Right.
It's about 30 states have Republican state legislatures.
Right. So people are always wondering, okay, why is it that there were this many Democratic voters, so many more than Republican voters, but we didn't get as many candidates voted in.
Right.
The Republicans got more candidates, and that's because of the way the map is drawn.
Exactly.
So now it's like, okay, so what do you do about that?
You know, well, of course, you got to win elections.
Yeah.
But it's hard when you're playing uphill. You got to find candidates who can match these districts. You got to get people out to vote. And you really got to drive them out to vote. And I think they just recently came out with a independent study said in order for Democrats to win the Wisconsin state legislature, they'd have to win 54% of the vote.
Wow.
And so it's like, well, we're 54% of the vote. This is Wisconsin. This is a 50-50 state. You know, maybe somebody may get just ahead and you get 50-51, but you have to get the 54 just to get 51% of those seats. That's not fair.
Wow. Tell me and you were talking about, well, this really shows that you got to vote.
Every single vote counts.
You can't sit on the sidelines. Tell me about the story of you with, I think, your cousins. And you went in and
This is right after 2016 because there was so many people who just didn't go out and vote in 2016 or just didn't feel it was that important. You know, we lost Wisconsin in 2016 by 20,000 votes. That's literally like one vote per precinct across the entire state.
Wow.
And you know, as we get to the next elections, we're living in a red state now in Wisconsin. It's the first time in my lifetime Wisconsin was red. And I didn't like that. Red is my favorite color, and I don't want to see Wisconsin red. And so I go to my aunt's house, and my cousins were there, and it was the spring elections. I'm like, we have to vote. And like, yeah, it's not that important. It's a spring election. We don't even know who the candidates is. And I'm there. I had a baseball bat. It's like, no, we're gonna vote. We're gonna vote now. And my aunt was like, "Did you really?" They're like, I'm not threatening anybody. I'm just holding a baseball bat. It's baseball season. We're gonna go and vote though. And I forced my cousins to go out there and vote because it's like, no, you have to vote.
Yeah.
Because honestly, so many places around the world, they're literally holding people back at the barrel of a gun to get them to go and vote. Well, to not vote.
And
here we are. I have to stand here with a baseball bat to force you to go and vote. You know, we have
something's wrong with that picture, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah. And too many people, risk their lives.
Yeah.
So that we would have that opportunity to vote. That's what I always think about. You can't make excuses.
Right. And that's not even that far back. My grandparents weren't allowed to vote in Mississippi and in Tennessee.
Yeah.
And here I am, it kind of just shows the evolution of time and just America, especially in Black American history. Here my grandparents, they weren't allowed to vote.
Yeah.
And now here I am, the leader of a political party where they moved to. And so you just have to 25 to 50 years in America, look how things change.
Exactly.
If you are actively engaged in it.
Exactly. So what do you think, do you think the tide has changed? Because in the last presidential election, a lot of people voted. So do you think that that's getting across? Your vote really does matter?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you think it's gotten across your vote really does matter in a presidential race?
Right. Well, that's the thing. I hope hopefully we'll find out fairly soon.
Yeah.
Last year we had an amazing turnout. It was the highest turnout in American history.
Mm-hmm.
But it was 2/3 of the people eligible to vote showed up and voted. 2/3, and that was the highest in American history.
Yeah.
There's still people out there who aren't in the pool. We got to get them out there into the pool and get them wanting to go out there and vote. Until we get 100%, I won't be satisfied. Even if we're at 99, I'm like, yeah, there's still some people out there who did not go out there and vote.
Let's go find them.
We got to figure it out. We got to go get them. And we just have to keep pushing.
Yeah.
There's so many ways right now that people are trying to get in the way to stop people from voting because it's not working it's not what they want for their cause. There's more people voting. But we're a democracy. Everybody voting should be the cause that we're behind no matter what, whether they're with you or not. You should be encouraging people to get out and vote.
Exactly. And that's a good segue. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about voter suppression. So stay with us. This is the 411 Live.
See us dream. See us remember. See us protest.
You matter. Your feelings matter. Your identity matters. Everything about who you are matters.
See us fight back. See us rebuild. See us shatter stereotypes. See us inspire. See us united. See us now.
Have you ever seen somebody treated unfairly because of the color of their skin?
Do you guys know what it means to have white privilege?
What is racism and what do you think about it?
Talk to young children about what racism is, giving them the language to understand it. They can be disruptors. They can shape and shift culture.
We may not always know the answer, but we'll try and help you learn.
You don't have to have all the answers, but that doesn't mean we can't start.
Welcome back. I'm talking to Chris Walton on the 411 Live, and he is the former chair of the Democratic Party for Milwaukee County. Right now, he's in Washington, D.C., right?
Mm-hmm.
You just got there.
Yeah.
You started the job just a few months ago?
Yep, in July.
Okay.
As the senior policy and organizing manager for the Black AIDS Institute.
All right. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, we're going to pull you back to Milwaukee, though, so don't get too comfortable.
Okay. It's a little warmer than I like it out there, so it won't be too hard to pull.
Okay. We were talking about the red map and gerrymandering, redistricting, and doing that red map, that project of getting more Republicans in the state legislators across the country,
Mm-hmm.
and then those Republicans being able to draw the map to favor Republicans. So putting more U.S. congressmen up in Washington that are Republican, and then there are the fallout from that. Like, for example, in Pennsylvania, Republicans got about half the votes, but they got 3/4 of the seats because of the way the map is drawn.
Right.
Yeah. Would you call that voter suppression?
Most definitely. Because in every instance where I vote, if I get half of the vote, I should get half of the seats.
Yeah.
That's how it should be. But if people are voting and it's not even worth it, then why am I voting? Why even care? Why does it even matter? Why do I even try? And you're breaking the will of people to be in a democracy. Like they're eroding democracy.
Yeah. Let's talk about other ways of voter suppression. A lot of things have come up. Restricting the hours that you can vote, restricting mail-in voting. What else do you think of as far as voter suppression tactics?
Making it so that you only can go to, you only have 15 days to do early voting. When Wisconsin first started doing early voting, you were allowed to go in first to cast the first votes at the end of September. And we know who the nominees are. We've had the primaries.
Right.
What are we waiting on? Make the runway as long as possible to get as many people out to vote as possible. Doing things like that, making it, you have to have an ID to vote because we need to know who you are to vote. Because people are falling over themselves to get out there and vote. I've never seen a mass riot rushing to get to the polls. Well, maybe a little bit last year, but nobody is like rushing to get to the polls like that, where we just have to check every single person to make sure. We've never had issues around voter fraud. I think they said over the last 20 years, there may have been 100 cases of actual voter fraud in the United States. 10 cases over 20 years?
Yeah.
And how many times have we voted? That's not even won an election.
Yeah.
It's extraordinarily rare.
But it's like if you keep pushing voter fraud, you keep saying it's there. The more you say it, the more people will believe it. And, it perpetuates and people are believing a lie.
Right. A big lie.
A big lie.
And we saw what happens when a big lie comes in this last January.
Yeah.
If you keep perpetuating that something's happening, it's going to begin to echo into an echo chamber. You'll have certain news organizations that like to constantly repeat this stuff. And here we are. We have people invading the Capitol over something that they think is happening, but it's not.
Tell me how you reacted. Somebody who is engrossed in politics and, a proponent of democracy and all those things. What was your reaction when you saw that insurrection? I
was disgusted. I was completely disgusted. Nothing like that should happen because we are not in the United States of America has been a democracy governed continuously since we got our government up and running. We've never had a situation like this, but we've also never had a president perpetuating a lie to the American people every single day. Say, "Oh, I was cheated." No, you lost. This is something that we settled this in kindergarten.
Yeah.
Just because you lose does not mean it was a cheat.
Right. Right.
And he lost, and President Biden and Vice President Harris won. As simple as that. You can run again. God, I hope you don't. But you can run again, and we'll let the people decide again.
Right. A couple of things when we talk about when we were talking about the gerrymandering thing, and I know people are hearing cracking and packing, and they're hearing those words. When we talk about cracking, what are we talking about?
So cracking is, let's say, for example, Milwaukee County currently has 4 congressional districts. Why? Milwaukee County doesn't necessarily need 4 congressional districts. They took the Wisconsin 6th congressional district. It goes from River Hills up to Sheboygan and across just north of Wisconsin Dells. What exactly has all of that district, what cohesion does all that district have? What part of that district resembles River Hills? And, usually when you're supposed to draw congressional districts, you want communities of interest. You want it to be geographically compact so it makes sense. There's no reason you should have the north side of Milwaukee in a district with a rural area just north of Wisconsin Dells. That's almost 200 miles away.
Wow.
And that's one congressional district. The fact that you would take you would take the western suburbs of Milwaukee County and put them into the 5th congressional district, and take the southern suburbs of Milwaukee County and put them into the 1st congressional district. But then you also take the 1st congressional district and wrap it up into Waukesha, and you take it all the way out to Beloit. Like, the maps don't. It's like, what type of Rorschach test are you trying to create? If you look at the 3rd congressional district out in western Wisconsin, it's basically a backwards lowercase y. It runs up the Mississippi River with the state line, but then it juts out and goes over into like Adams County over in the center of the state. Like, what are you drawing here? You can make Wisconsin lines very clear. It's the Midwest. Everything is nice and square here. If you look at Iowa, it's literally like 4 slices of cake. You don't have to necessarily draw it like that. Now, of course, a county like Milwaukee, it would definitely have more than one congressional district because it's over 1 million people. So there's some parts that have to go into other districts. But if you draw the line specifically around certain areas and put them into this district to make sure Paul Ryan's district at that time, but not Brian Style, make sure his district is got a few more Republicans to keep him competitive, and you put 100% of Democrats in Gwen Moore's district so that they don't have the chance to vote in these other districts, what are you doing?
And that example of Gwen Moore's district, that's packing.
That's packing.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So you crack it by putting some here, some here, some here, and you just dilute it. You diluted them. So now so Gwen Moore ends up winning, and then packing happens because now Gwen Moore gets 70-80% of the vote in her district, but then Brian Style just gets across with 55% of the vote in his district. And same with the 6th congressional district. He gets 55% here, and he get 55%. But if you maybe expanded it out a little bit, maybe he would end up at maybe 51, or maybe he would lose. Same with the other ones.
Right. Gotcha. I mean, and then, they're using computers, and they know, this neighborhood votes this way. And that dictates how these maps are drawn. Okay. So one of the solutions that when we talked earlier was to have this independent commission to have the task of drawing up maps, not the politicians.
Right.
Do you think that will happen?
At this point, due to our state legislature, no, they won't vote for it.
Yeah.
The governor has tried to do a people's commission on going around the state, getting people to actually say, put input in on what maps should look like. California does the same thing. A lot of different states have actually moved that direction. A lot of the Democratic states have moved that direction. New York has an independent commission. Virginia has an independent commission, just like California.
Yeah.
But a lot of the Republican states just do not.
Yeah.
So it's kind of ended up in a situation where the Democratic states have disarmed and created independent commissions, and the Republican states are like, no, we're drawing our own maps. So they'll draw theirs, and then it'll be a balance on all the Democratic side.
Oh, wow.
But an independent commission in Wisconsin would be probably the best way to go because Wisconsin is such a 50-50 state.
That's true.
If a Wisconsin landslide is getting 51% of the vote, we have to have somebody who can come in and just call the lines exactly as they are and draw those lines perfectly. Of course, if you don't want to be fair, let me draw the lines. I'll give you a masterpiece. But I know that's not fair. That's not what democracy should look like.
Gotcha.
And so an independent commission, I believe, would be the best route to go. Okay. Or at least, and having members, there are different ways that a lot of people will split them up. You'll have 3 Democrats, you'll have 3 Republicans, and then you'll have one person who is an independent, and actually an independent, and you'll go from there, and they'll decide.
Yeah. We're just about out of time, but I just want to jump back on you again. You ran for an actual state race, in a state race. And with all the things you've seen in politics recently, do you think you'll run for office again?
Absolutely.
You will?
Absolutely. I had way too much fun running for office. Getting to actually talk to people and see what issues are important to them and how I can hopefully go to Madison and fight for those issues. There's so much that the city of Milwaukee has to offer. Milwaukee is the engine of the state of Wisconsin. We create over 1/3 of the state's budget. And honestly, if you take Milwaukee out of Wisconsin, you got Iowa. And so we have to elect young, dynamic leaders to go forward and really push Milwaukee, how important Milwaukee is to the state of Wisconsin and the potential that we bring to this state. And we need leaders who are willing and committed to be public servants for the people. And I think that I have some skills that I could bring to help, steer the ship of state.
Yeah.
And so one day,
when
I come back, definitely, I would definitely consider running again for office because I had way too much fun just listening to people and seeing how can I be helpful.
Yeah, we need that. We need you. So come on back, okay?
Okay.
All right. We have been talking to Chris Walton, former chair of the Democratic Party in Milwaukee County, and who is currently the Senior Policy and Organizing Manager for Black AIDS Institute in Washington, D.C. Milwaukee native. He's gone for a little while, but he has family here, so he's visiting, and eventually he'll come back and run for office. So we'll talk to you again, okay?
Absolutely.
Chris, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having
We
me.
really appreciate it. And thank you for joining us for another episode of the 411 Live. Remember, we're a nonprofit organization, so if you are so inclined to contribute, donate, go to our website, the411live.org. Until next time, I'm Beverly Taylor. This is the 411 Live. Real people, real talk. If you would like to check out past episodes, there are many ways. Go to your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Like and watch us on Facebook. Watch and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you have suggestions for future episodes, go to our website, the411live.org.